you, position the product, from this point forward, you are biolab scientists. So we don't compete against you. We don't sell direct. We only sell through you. So it's very important that you fully understand, when you go into someone, you can get their interest using the value proposition I'm going to share with you. But at some point, where does this come from? Who are these guys making it? Well, we've had a lot of success outside of wound care, is positioning the product and telling the story how the product helps the worst of the worst wounds and injuries, right? It helps severe burns, trauma, plastics, it helps chronic non-healing wounds. I mean, the worst wounds and injuries, known to man, this product is an important component. Because we've been able to bring the cost down, now you have the ability to extend it, for other types of uses in healthcare. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about. How do we do that? There is some low-hanging fruit out there. We want you guys to be able to go after it. So again, the mission statement, this entire deck you guys will have access to, right? I'll send you guys over this so you can beg, borrow, and steal from it. But, as a manufacturer, BioLab is committed to continuous innovation, education, superior customer service, and teamwork, right? That's what really are the pillars of our organization. Again, the people are there if you need to use them. So Dr. Marshall Medley is a key guy. He is our chief medical officer. His job is to support all of you. If you get into a situation where you have a doctor or a clinic that has some very, technical questions about, the components in the product, how it's leveraged, how it's not, he is the guy that you can reach out to. So you have to go through him and get access to him through your distributor, right? But you'd have access to him. He's a vascular surgeon by trade. He's done a lot of wound care. But he also has access to all our key opinion leaders. So these are the people throughout the country that are advocates, have specialties in different uses. He can get you access to them or answer your questions. So again, when we talk about the portfolio, we're talking about all of these products together. Now, what you're going to find is that our Fluid GF, and remember Restore GF, are the exact same product. Okay, remember that under this Restore label, every one of our products can be acquired for cash. Okay, every one of our products, Fluid, Membrane, and Dermostat, have a version under that Restore label. Why do we do that? To maintain flexibility. So whenever you see the Restore name, that represents our cash pay version. When it comes to our reimbursable Fluid Flow, Membrane Wrap, and Dermostat, or Fluid GF, those products all have Q codes, right? Q codes mean that they're eligible for reimbursement through insurance companies, okay? And so for those products, the pricing is pretty rigid, right? Pretty rigid. We maintain consistent pricing for those products across the country. We used to have rebates. We've gotten away from rebates now. So we do have data collection agreements in place where providers can make money if they give us the data, images, and feedback on the products. We cut them a check at the end of the quarter. So it allows them to really make money from us in exchange for feedback. And it's a totally independent agreement, has nothing to do with their sale, okay? But those three products all have Q codes. Anything under the Restore label doesn't. It gives us and you tremendous pricing flexibility. We leverage that label to get competitive, to help you guys win business, right? To run promos, and also to give product away in kind. So one of the things you're going to find, so if you ever need demos, right? Good, I'd like to demo. You can access demos, right? You keep selling, you get more demos. Okay, so you have access to demos. All you're going to do is request them. What we're going to ask you to do though is own them. They're not free. In fact, when we send out a demo, it's a marketing expense to us. So we still record it. It's an asset to our organization. But if they're helping us lead the net new business, you can receive them. We just ask that you take responsibility for them and that you follow up. And when you're extending them, right? The worst thing I want to see is when someone goes into one of these specialty areas, and they say, hey, I've got demos, you want demos, right? Of course they're going to take them, but you've diminished the value down to zero. We don't want to do that. We want to give them our value prop. We want to go to the right people. And if they seem interested, but their only reservation is they want to just ensure they're not getting a vial of junk, right? Yesterday, your medical officer, what was his name again? Your
Dr. Patel.
Dr. Patel talked about the CBDs, right? And how there's a lot of junk out there. Well, there's not as much of it anymore, but there used to be a lot of junk in our space too. And a lot of these people have been burned by that junk. So this is an opportunity for you, if that's the only thing keeping them from going forward, to say, okay, I can get you a demo vial or two. Commitment or this, med spa owner that when this does everything we say it's going to do, you're going to start buying it from me, right? So make sure you establish a commitment. So the specialty areas, right? And we're going to talk about that. Remember, the specialty areas that we're going to be focused on are regenerative clinics, regenerative uses, right? Any place that historically they've gone out and they've any place that they historically have leveraged PRP, adipose, or bone marrow as a source, for proteins, right, and regenerative factors to help with patients. Those are the people we're going to go to. You're going to find that's a huge audience. That's a huge audience, but that's where we want to start. Okay, we want to start with the people that we don't have to convince that this science is effective and a valuable resource for the patients. Yeah, that's where we want to start.
You might want to repeat that.
Okay.
When you just said that. I can't
Yeah.
emphasize the importance of this group understanding what you just said.
Yes, absolutely. So we want to go to people that we don't have to convince, because there's so many.
Why is that so?
Because one, they understand the science, right? They understand what is the mode of action in PRP, adipose, and bone marrow. What is it that they're actually leveraging scientifically to help their patients? Because if they get that, and you come in and we're going to give you the talk points and the value prop to talk to that, then it's going to be a natural transition. Okay, it's going to be a natural transition.
In the instance that you've been out there in the field, you work with a lot of different people, and you're trying to pursue the development of an account, and you come across someone that is not on that page. What do?
Honestly, I think
like
the time. And I
just
get out quickly. I move, yeah, because there's too many people.
Yeah.
When 7-8 years ago, when this space was really starting to take off, you worked harder on those people because there are a few people who really understood the science and had leveraged the science to help their patients. Right? They were still injecting everyone or feeding everyone, Schedule II drugs.
Yeah.
Now that regenerative health is so prevalent in the world, in the United States, and we were late to the game, guys. We were extremely late. Our best athletes, actors, people with money have been going to Europe, Canada, Mexico,
Panama, right?
everywhere but here to get those treatments.
Yeah.
Why were we so late to the game?
FDA.
Not only the FDA, but FDA, you're right, but who was behind the FDA?
Big Pharma.
Big Pharma, right? They shut down. I sold some of the first CBDs early on for different
Before
companies.
the Farm Bill.
Yeah, before that. And who would buy them and shut them down? Big Pharma.
Yeah.
Buy them, shut them down. Buy them, shut them down. Because they try to, push out the inevitable. Same thing in our space, right? They don't like us because we actually, drive costs out of healthcare. Our products have the propensity to lower the cost in healthcare, right? It's net new for us. It's incremental for us, but it reduces dollars out of someone's pocket. And it's typically, it's big pharma. So again, 7 years ago, you had to do a lot of educating. 7 years ago, these products were unfortunately referred to, using different marketing names and terms that painted in today's world has painted a bad, image of our industry. Stem cells, mesenchymal cells, exosomes, all of these marketing buzzwords, because it was kind of needed at the time, because in order for people to understand how they're being leveraged, keep in mind in these regenerative products, the cells play no relevance in them. It's the proteins that these cells shed, right? That once they're lysed, that we're leveraging. It's the proteins. What we do with our products is we terminally sterilize them up front, so that that's one less step in the process that our body has to do in order to fully leverage this product.
Oh, wait, can I ask a question
Sure.
on that subject, I think?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I went to, I have a friend who owns a company called Facial Aesthetics, and she does all that stuff.
Good.
And she's already using what she thinks is something similar.
Okay.
And she asked me if these products have DNA in them. So that's what you just said, right? That it
Terminally
does.
sterilized,
Okay,
so, and there are no live cells.
so
Right.
terminally sterilized means they're
Acellular.
killing-
Yeah,
Okay.
kill all the live cells. So the sterilization process leaves you just viable protein. In fact, you have to calibrate your sterilization process so that you don't damage all the protein. You could essentially neutralize the whole thing.
Okay.
We have to go through a recalibration very often with our sterilization company to make sure that the sterilization doesn't leave you just a vial of gunk.
So the vernacular with respect to it is really the protein, it's the cytochromes, and it's the growth factor.
It's the cytokines and growth factors
Yeah.
that are the mode of action in the product.
Okay.
Right.
Everything else is.
Everything else is marketing.
Yeah.
Everything else is marketing. If anyone sold or used any of these regenerative fluids 5 years ago, they're a dime a dozen. They're expensive, but everyone sold them. They had a lot of different, names associated with them. And many times they would sell you versions of the flow based upon live cells, right? You want a 50 million live cell vial or 100 million. Fact of the matter, when everything is said and done, they're both very effective. But it was a way for manufacturers and distributors to sell at various price points by positioning you want that, leaded or unleaded. Fact of the matter, though, is that they didn't. When everything is said and done, and that's part of what got a lot of our industry in trouble, is that you can't consistently validate those live cells. That cell count is based upon when you count them right then and there as you receive the product. It takes about 3 weeks to process these products. And after 3 weeks, only about 10% of those live cells are still viable. They dissipate quickly. But again, what they have done is as they dissipate, they shed these proteins, right? And the proteins are what we're leveraging. So a lot of different uses. Okay, and again, you guys will have access to this. Any questions about the uses right now?
Did you say, are you gonna cover how, nobody has anything like this out there?
That's left. I'm not gonna say that. There are some left that make it just like ours, right? We're the only ones with a Q code that's left with it, although we're gonna tell you to stay away from that for now, unless it's for wound care. There are very few left. Most everyone is gone, right? And the reason being is that most everyone made their fluid. Most everyone made their fluid by lyophilizing or micronizing the scraps of the membranes, right? So I'll give you guys a visual. We get in a placenta. Let's just say this is our placenta, right? We can only use what's good in it, which is the middle portion. If it has rips, wrinkles, or tears, we have to discard it, right? We discard it. Sometimes we make ocular discs for it for ophthalmic uses, but most of the time we just throw it away. And we're not the only ones that do that. So only about half of the lining from the donor is actually usable. The FDA early on encouraged us to respect the donated tissue and find other uses for it. So we started to lyophilize it and micronize it. And at first gave it away for free when you bought our membranes, so you could sprinkle some on the wound and still use some of the product, right? But as a traditional wound covering, it wasn't any good because that rips, tears, and imperfections. Well, manufacturers started to hydrate that, cryopreserve it, and ship it out and actually sell it because there's a market for it. Because it went from a solid to a fluid, once the FDA started enforcing the regulation that was manufactured, for about 10 years, they did it. But once they started to enforce it, it knocked everyone else out of the industry because they changed the composition of the product. Some of them added preservatives in it to protect the live cells, and they act as an indicator in the event there's any contamination. So all of those that made it that way, although they were very good products, high quality products, they were compliant products, they were pushed out. And all that's left are the ones that make it like us. Now, with everyone that makes it like us, to have products on the market, there's only a couple that sell in outpatient wounds in the outpatient wound care space. There's 3. One of them doesn't make it themselves. They outsource the manufacturing, sometimes to us, and they just relabel it. The other one, they're pretty concentrated in Florida and kind of the East Coast. And then the few others don't sell in outpatient wound care. They sell to hospitals, to sports franchises. You know, they don't market it like we do.
So when you say, Jaime, they don't make it like us, what do you go into a little bit more detail?
Okay, yeah. So when we make our product is a pure liquid allograft made from pure amniotic fluid. So again, instead of making it from the placenta's, the membrane on the placenta, the amniotic lining from the placenta, we actually extract the amniotic fluid right before childbirth via amniocentesis, right? So image guided, a nurse goes in, pulls out all the fluid, puts it in a beaker for us. As long as it meets our criteria, it's shipped to us on dry ice, and then we, go through the process of making it. That's different. Most of the other manufacturers don't make it that way, but that's also why they're not around anymore.
Not to confuse the two, we're talking specifically about fluid. We're not talking about the allografts.
Well, it is an allograft. It's just a liquid allograft. Remember, allograft means coming from a donor.
But the development of your allografts, can you use the placental membrane?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, so for that, yes, so there's liquid allografts. That's what this is. This is a liquid allograft made from filtered, terminally sterilized amniotic fluid, right? Rich in growth factors and cytokines. No live cells in it. It has a lot of, verticals. I'll tell you from a reimbursement standpoint, its vertical is podiatry and wound care. From a cash pay standpoint, I showed you guys all the use, right? And it's predominantly in podiatry and wound care. Its priority uses are chronic non-healers and surgical acute wounds, right? A lot of times, I had it done with my wrist. I broke my wrist. Okay, I had them inject as they fixed my wrist. They injected fluid in and around it, pull down the inflammation, encourage healing. I fully recovered. It should have taken me 3 or 4 months. I recovered in 45 days from my wound because I cheated the process. I threw in some growth factors in there to help me heal faster. So that's what the fluid is. Again, when you go into a clinic, and when you're talking to a provider about it, hey, I'm bringing you a protein product, right? From an FDA perspective, this product is considered a cushioning, lubricating, and protection device. That keeps us compliant. That keeps us legal. That allows us, that ensures that we're not properly marketing the product. So I have a protection, lubricating, and coverage device. Any of those words you can use, because that's what it does that's what the product serves as in the placenta, right? It cushions, protects the fetus. However, doctor or med spa owner, I'm sure you want to know what's in it. You're going to say, yeah, of course I want to know what's in it. So the mode of action, or what you're going to leverage, is this protein profile. So post-sterilization, after we sterilize the product, this is what's left. It's an array of growth factors and cytokines, right? This is what you're going to be leveraging for soft tissue regeneration. Now, there's a bunch of them. I don't expect you to know what all of those do. They all serve a unique purpose, okay? But specifically, there are what we consider to be the heavy lifters. Okay, these are the markers that are most often leveraged to help regenerate damaged soft tissue. That's what this is all about. How do we help, the patient, the customer, regenerate damaged soft tissue?
So you said something last night that caught my ear. If you have bone-on-bone osteoarthritis, you're not going to rebuild cartilage.
If there's no cells there, no fibers there to replicate from, it's not. Now, could you still use it and get benefit? You could, because it'll pull down inflammation, but eventually the inflammation is going to come back, right? Anyone a bone-on-bone, whether they're being treated with our product or cortisone, right? If I had to pick between the two, I'd to pick our product. They're both going to accomplish the same thing, and neither are going to regenerate what's not there. So if you had to pick, you still pick our product, right? Historically, they haven't, because of its cost was so high. But now that we've lowered the cost so much, it's still more than cortisone, but not that much more. Why wouldn't you use a more natural anti-inflammatory instead of, a pharmaceutical? So, yeah, and same thing when you're talking about aesthetically, right? Or for like hair restoration, which is used mixed with hyaluronic acid. We're talking about doing a kit potentially for you guys, an aesthetic kit that will have everything they need to do these aesthetic procedures. But if you're doing hair restoration, that the follicles are completely gone, you can't do anything. It's not going to, it's not magic. So the first, set of important markers you want to point out are these markers that are going to stimulate cellular growth and differentiation. So what the product has a propensity to do is recruit your own progenitor cells, your adult stem cells, right? And that's where this marketing term in our industry, stem cell products and treatments, comes from. It's not what's in the product, it's what it does in your body, right? We all have indigenous progenitor cells that are inherent to us. And when you're younger and you're healthy and your body's not fighting, diabetes and everything else, we naturally heal pretty good and pretty fast. As we get older, our diets get worse, we're exposed to the elements. It doesn't happen as quickly. So space to help recruit our own, indigenous progenitor cells, our adult stem cells, to repair and replace damaged soft tissue. Now remember, it's going to signal our body to repair and replace what was there. You're not going to have to worry about it signaling your body to grow something that you're not going to grow an ear on your elbow, right? It's only going to replace what was there before. And again, that's where the word differentiation comes in. It's going to differentiate based upon where those cells are being called into, right? Where those stem cells being recruited to. But there are no live cells in any of this stuff. Again, good or bad, we had to call these products in the past stem cell products so people knew exactly what they're being used for. And unfortunately, the consumer thought that they was actually the stem cells in the product that were most important. It's the growth factors and cytokines that are being shed from the stem cells. Once you get live cells introduced into your body, whether they're yours or someone else's, the body will lyse them. They fight them. They will lyse them, and they're going to shed proteins, and that's what we're using, proteins. There are the markers in the product that are going to stimulate new blood vessel formation. So angiogenesis is a big thing, right? And if you look at, regardless of what the soft tissue injury is, a burn, trauma, plastics, a rupture, a tear, if it's dealing with soft tissue, one of the biggest inhibitors for recovery is lack of blood flow, right? Lack of blood flow. So if we can introduce these proteins that are going to stimulate the regeneration of blood flow in and around that wound, you're going to get the body the appropriate nutrients it needs to be able to regenerate the damaged soft tissue. And here's a little visual of what that actually looks like, right? And you see this a lot. So we actually have a study that we're doing with some providers, and they're doing, using some imaging to show the regeneration of blood vessels and blood flow. At some point in the next year or so, we're going to seek an indication for that, for the product, because it's so effective in helping us regenerate damaged blood flow or reduce blood flow. Where we see that as a big inhibitor is in diabetics, right? Diabetics. And that's why they get these lower extremity wounds that never heal. We helped a guy who had a 30-year-old non-healing wound, right? 30-year-old non-healing wound. He finally recovered using fluid, our membrane, and dermostat, a combination of that use, and he finally recovered. But the fluid and the membrane got the body moving in the right direction, and dermostat came in just like the closer in baseball, and closed it, and finished it up.
So, one thing I would point out, you mentioned it last night, is that plantar fasciitis and Achilles tendonitis, this is a good product.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's a big deal with foot and ankle doctors.
Absolutely.
They see a lot of it.
And in fact, when we first got our indication from CMS, when we turned in our application for our Q code, that's what we specifically pointed those things out. And that's when it was reimbursed for a couple of years for that. Unfortunately, when everything is said and done, they ran out of money. They didn't appropriate money correctly, so they slowed down on reimbursements. But again, we've lowered the cost so that you can give them a cash pay option to treat that.
And it's non-surgical too, so that's also.
Yeah. So we actually had a guy, a friend of a family member who recently reached out to us and sent us his images and said, hey, look, I went to see an orthopedics, surgeon, and they want to get me into surgery right away for a tear, right, that I have. And it's painful. And before I do it, I wanted to see if you had a doctor in your group that would look at it. So I'm not a doctor. Heck, I didn't know what I was looking at. I sent it to a doctor. Doctor came back and said, he doesn't need surgery. Send him to me. He's got to immobilize, that part of his body. We're going to inject him with some fluid. If he follows our direction, he'll completely recover. He was like 35-year-old guy, right? Who actually tore a ligament in his shoulder, and they wanted to fully, they wanted to go in and reconstruct it. Which would the reconstruction help? It would be. But why cut someone open if you don't have to? And our product, because it wasn't a complete rupture, can aid in that recovery.
How educated are consumers? So that man that was reaching out to you, was he able to articulate what it was he was looking for, or just
No,
an alternative?
Not really. Just wanted an alternative to surgery. Yeah. So we do have a patient-facing document. It's meant more to educate the patient once the doctor's prescribed it, right? And make sure they know there are no live cells. It's not stem cells. You're not going to catch anything from the product. And why is my doctor prescribing this? Well, he wants to leverage these markers to help you.
Do we have access to these things?
You do. Yeah. And then there are the markers in it that are going to stimulate tissue remodeling, right? And I talked about this yesterday, just as important, a decrease in remodeling. One of the fears early on in the 80s and 90s when they're doing a lot of stem cell, and the product when the product was still referred to as a stem cell product, and they were, testing originally on or leveraging aborted fetuses before the Bush administration, eliminated that, was they were afraid of this, overgrowth of the tissue. So not being able to force it to stop. So, and you would have tissue overgrowth, which could lead to, depending upon where it's at, tumor formations. So this source of proteins have this, specific marker, these specific markers that will turn it off. So once the soft tissue is regenerated back to its optimal state, the body absorbs it, it stops. If there's some life in the protein, it may be redirected. In almost every instance, providers tell us about a systemic effect from the product, regardless of where it's used, right? What that means is that it gets transferred to other parts of the body, right? And why does that happen? Right? And I had that first time I ever got injected with this type of product about 5 or 6 years ago in my shoulder. I was in a car accident, had a slight tendon tear in my shoulder from the seatbelt. Just wouldn't heal, right? A lot of pain, got injected, a month later, was almost completely recovered, felt great. But also at the time I had an old thumb injury and that got better too. And it wasn't until I really reflected, I went back to the doctor and she was evaluating me. I said, doctor, my thumb got better. It doesn't get inflamed at the end of the day like it used to. I don't have any pain in it anymore. And she goes, you got a systemic effect from the product. It was close enough to the original injury. You obviously have inflammation in that area. So your body redirected some of the proteins to that other area. In fact, there's a growing use of the product specifically to achieve systemic effects. Some of the best athletes in the world, right? We didn't invent this. In fact, the special forces are the ones who started doing it first, and it leaked out. And now a lot of high-level athletes and high-level professionals use these products, use this fluid as a general wellness treatment. There's a lot of these regenerative specialists who do Myers cocktails, right, to achieve a general wellness treatment. So what many of them do now is they'll take a product like this and through the side port inject some of it, use the cocktail to flush it, right? And what they're hoping happens is that the body redirects these proteins systemically to address minor wear and tear in the body, right? And what we know happens with our version of this product, because there's no tissue in it, is it has a propensity to penetrate your blood-brain barrier. So it can actually help with inflammation in the brain. We've had, yesterday, it was Kim who said she worked with Dr. Munoz, a regenerative specialist in Arizona that works with a lot of high-level athletes. including bodybuilders, soccer players, football players. She's treated concussed soccer players using this product, right? Right after their injury, she nebulizes and IV some of the product to pull down the inflammation in around the brain so they can recover better, faster, more completely. She's hoping to prevent CTE in some of these athletes, right? So a lot of it can't correct CTE because CTE is, calcification of that, of the brain essentially, or the soft tissue in the brain. It's dead. There's nothing we can do. You can't regenerate what's not there anymore. But if you can pull the inflammation down and allow the body to heal better, faster, more completely, so you're less susceptible to another one, right? And the athletes follow the doctor's, guidance, you could hopefully help prevent some CTE.
I mean, from our conversation, we're considering the nebulized pulmonary component, and providing
A kit.
a kit for everybody. Just speak to that component.
Sure.
I know we skipped the slide before, but just,
No, it's
I know
okay.
you use it,
Yeah.
your staff uses it, and
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit.
So the nebulization of our product isn't something that we invented, right? We didn't come up with it. Pulmonologists have been nebulizing patients' PRP for years. And it's a last ditch effort to help those patients that have no other options. And what they're hoping to do is prolong their life a few couple extra months. maybe a year.
COPD type of situation.
COPD, allergy, asthma, bronchitis, valley fever. Once they have severe respiratory, injuries.
COVID respiratory.
Yeah, a lot of those things.
Yeah.
So PRP, again, what are they leveraging in PRP? Protein, right? They're hoping that if there's any tissue still viable there, they're going to signal the body to regenerate some of that tissue, which could give the patient some relief, give them added lung function. So they started using or mixing our product with PRP to give it a boost, got great results. They soon said, we're not going to do PRP. We're just going to use your product with saline, have them nebulize that. So before we had our Q codes, we would make them kits. Once we got our Q codes and we came under very heavy scrutiny by the feds, they told us not to ship out 2 medical devices anymore. So we can as a manufacturer, but you can provide kits. Remember, the product is being used as a topical over the respiratory system. So it's intended first and foremost to help with respiratory inflammation and signal the body to regenerate if there's any viable soft tissue there to help regenerate that. But what ends up happening is you get a systemic effect from it. Once the product is in your lungs, your body has a propensity to systemically circulate it through your oxygen and blood, and your body will naturally redirect the proteins to the areas of most inflammation.
Is there any testing or whatever kind of lateral deal with heart damage or anything like that?
I mean, in theory, it could help, regenerate some damaged soft tissue there, but there's no studies for it. Just in theory, it's soft tissue. Could it help? It could. Ironically, though, if you've had heart surgery, and sometimes they purposely go in there and generate scar tissue, you don't want to do this because they could actually break up that scar tissue, right? So you got to be careful when you're using it with anyone like with a heart condition. You want to make sure that their provider signs off on it because you don't want to undo something. Sometimes they purposely create scar tissue there to help, scaffold things up, and this could potentially undo some of that. So you don't want to do that. Okay, but it's a great respiratory treatment. We've had providers treat patients who are recovering from COVID and other types of respiratory distress, respiratory inflammation. It's just a topical application of this product, right? And you're using the nebulizer to deliver it. Now, insurance doesn't cover it right now. They don't cover it as a breathing treatment. This is an off-label use for it, but we know providers are using it. I use it personally that way. I do it at least 4 times a year. Every couple months I do it, and it helps me sleep better, recover better.
How do you do it? Like it's an inhaler?
And the nebulizer.
You put it in
So what's that?
nebulizer breathing treatment.
A breathing
treatment.
So,
So you put a mask on, it has a chamber.
yeah.
We'll send you guys the instructions.
Okay, because my mother has scleroderma and her lungs are very affected. So I'm hoping maybe this.
I mean, if inflammation is a cause or a side effect, then this could help with the inflammation. Absolutely. And remember, if you address, sometimes inflammation is the primary hurdle, the primary inhibitor to recovery, right? It is for almost every ailment in our body, from cancer to, an Achilles tendonitis, inflammation is typically at the root of all of that.
It inhibits healing.
Yeah, if you could address that inhibitor, it might be the thing to pull inflammation down for a period of time so that the pain goes away sometimes, right? Now, remember this, when you're talking about the anti-inflammatory markers in the product, we can point to the specific markers. You may get tripped up because you're going to have doctors try to trick you. They're going to say, I thought inflammation was advantageous. We want inflammation. You want controlled inflammation. The body needs short-term controlled inflammation. That's what helps to signal progenitor cells to that area so you can repair and replace damaged soft tissue. Short-term. Long-term leads to autoimmune diseases. Long-term leads to cancer, right? Out of control inflammation is bad, right? So what this does, our product encourages a controlled inflammatory state by leveraging these markers. It pulls the body out of the screaming red, irritated inflammatory state, over-inflammatory state into a controlled inflammatory state. And it encourages a controlled inflammatory environment. And then it also has these antimicrobial markers that are going to help the body fight off infection. Okay, so let's talk about, where are we going to push this product, right? So the med spa market, the regenerative clinic market is an extremely fast-growing segment of our population. In 2019, it was valued at almost 14 billion, and it's projected to grow within 2030, which is only 8 years away, to almost $50 billion. Okay, and that's the med spa market. The regenerative medicine market, which sometimes it's the same and sometimes it's not. In Arizona, we have a lot of regen clinics that offer med spa services. But now you're getting more and more, right? The great Emmett Smith does that commercial for QC Kinetics. It is a regenerative clinic, right? And that market is the market that's going to go gangbusters because we know more now about it. We know there are alternatives to cortisone, Schedule II drugs, the things that were never supposed to be long-term solutions.
So the pain doctor that I was just looking at, a guy that I've been talking on, he doesn't mention anything about regenerative medicine or.
So you want to talk to him about it, right?
Yeah.
So what I would do if I go into a pain clinic, I'm going to say, doctor, are you administering cortisone, right? Which probably is for certain types of injuries. So this product is a great option for anyone who's received more than 4. Because they typically get 3 or 4 a year. That's what injuries pays for. And he knows, we know, the world knows that prolonged exposure to cortisone is not good for you, right? It has a tendency to deteriorate soft tissue. So it's intended to be short-term. Cortisone is an anti-inflammatory. It's addressing one of the inhibitors. And assuming everything else is good to go, you should recover, right? But what happens with older people that have other issues, in pulling down inflammation isn't enough. So it's typically going to be his older patients or patients that aren't as healthy. This is a good alternative. Now he's going to have to, charge you cash, but the pricing is to a point now where they should be able to afford it. We actually have put out some guidance on that. What we recommend they do is charge, probably the patient between $450 and $500 a cc. Okay. And take half of it up front and spread out the half in some payments, or spread the whole thing over payments, but spread it out for them so that it's manageable. It's so much better long-term than cortisone. So the opportunity is there. As you go into these targeted accounts, right? Any of the ones that are promoting regenerative treatments, do a Google search by PRP, adipose bone marrow, right? These are sources of regenerative factors that are typically autologous coming from that patient, okay? We want to go to them, right? Because they understand the science. They're the ones that get it. They're the ones that are regenerative advocates. We want to go to them. And when we go into them, we're not going to tell them we have the next great thing. Let them figure that out on their own. Okay, you're going to find over time as they use it, they're like, I get better results. Now it's the same cost or less, and I don't have to draw blood. I don't have to send my centrifuges out to get service. I don't have to call in a phlebotomist. this is saving me money and it's faster. They can treat more patients in a day. So what we recommend is you look at the, the patient population under 3 segments, under 30, under 50, 50 plus. Okay, why do we do that? Because when you look at this represents the inherent or the concentration of inherent protein in the body, right? So when you're borrowing protein from PRP, adipose, or bone marrow to centralize it in a wound or an injury, what we're doing is we're using our own protein to help regenerate soft tissue regeneration. When we're under 30, it's a great source. It's a rock solid source. As we get older, it's not as good because
PRP is a rock solid source.
PRP, adipose, and bone marrow.
Yeah,
They're all great sources.
Yeah.
Okay. So is our product going to be something you heavily market in this space? Not. You're not. What you're going to do though is you're going to encourage them to put it on their schedule as a booster, right? If you're coming in for a regenerative facial, right, and we're going to be using PRP, I would say, hey, I don't know if you see this, but we now have a protein booster. We're leveraging growth factors and cytokines from your PRP to help regenerate your damaged soft tissue. We actually have a booster that will make it about 10 times more effective. So what does that mean to you? It's going to last longer. It's going to recover faster, and you're going to be a lot happier with it. So would you like to pay another $250 for this 0.5 cc as a product? You're already $600 in. Most people say that. Not most, I'm sorry. About 10 to 15% say yes. So that's added dollars to them. And they're putting it on the menu just like Jamba Juice and Starbucks puts their boosters on there. Not everyone gets it, but some people, I'm $4 into this coffee, I might as well get another shot of this, whatever. So same thing, same concept here. We found that in this space, you position our smallest vial, the 0.5 cc, as a booster. A lot of patients are going to say yes. A lot of clients will say yes. As you get older than that, in this area, it's going to be dependent, right? Require for patients who have pre-existing conditions. So if the patients have diabetes, autoimmune diseases, right, or recovering from the COVID virus, something like that, then I would say, hey, you know what? Normally, you're good to go based upon some of these pre-existing conditions. If I'm gonna do this for you, let's boost it with the product. The older and the closer they get to this timeline, our recommendation is that you say, hey, you know what? This, using your PRP, your adipose bone marrow, whatever we're using, may not be the best option for you, right? The treatment itself, very beneficial. Unfortunately, because of your condition, these factors, I would recommend that we use an allograft. This allograft is the same proteins, just from a donor, a 1-day-old donor. By the way, it's sterile, so there's no live cells in it. It's not going to have an effect on you. It's just pure protein from the best source known to man. So let's do that. I'm going to mix it with hyaluronic acid, sterile saline to give you that treatment. I think you're going to be really happy with it. You have an option, because you know what they do with a lot of these people? They say no to them because their reputation is on the line, right? I don't want to treat this guy if I know, he comes in once it's whatever treated, and there's, it's going to be hit or miss, whether I get him on a good day or I might be able to get some good protein. So now I don't have to say no to them. Now I have options. So you're giving them options. You don't want to go into these clinics and tell them that what they've done is junk and it's not any good. Because it isn't. It's still the best source of protein is your own protein. PRP, adipose, bone marrow, we're leveraging protein that's from us, right? Problem is, the younger you are, the better it is. The older you are, the worse it is. So, that's why typically if you're going to get a PRP treatment, they do 3 or 4 of them. Because they got to get you on a good day, and they're hoping that the combination of these proteins will lead to an effective treatment. With our product, in all the injections, we've had over 100,000 uses of this product in the last 3 years. Over 90% of them have only ever received one, because the benefits are, unlike pharmaceuticals where it addresses those symptoms, right? But then it wears out and you got to get another one. This isn't doing that. This is, pulling down inflammation, reducing pain, but more importantly, helping the body recover from that injury, that wound, that defect. It's helping the body recover from it. Now, not to say you couldn't re-injure it again and it'll start all over, but at least addressing many times that specific injury you're done, or it's recovered enough to a point to where you feel good about it. You don't have to go in and get further treatments. So again, this is, you're gonna position it to complement. Yes.
I know this is kind of silly, but I just want to clarify, because I've heard the term PRP many times. When I was in medical, it was, I think, plasma or.
Yes, platelet, PRP stands for platelet-rich plasma.
Platelets rich plasma.
And in wound care, they do platelet-rich fiber, which is virtually the same thing. They're both very effective. This is the exciting thing for us right now, as we're collectively collecting data like crazy, is that for the first time, Medicare, Medicaid has recognized PRP and PRF as a vital wound care resource for diabetics. First time ever, right? First time ever. And they shared that with us at our meeting, the symposium of our wound care advocacy group that we're part of in Washington. They finally said that. And so that was, probably 10, 15 years too late, but at least they're heading in the right direction. Why is that important? Because we're now, using deductive logic, showing them, okay, you're proving it because you're recognizing that there are growth factors and cytokines that can help that patient. Yes, wonderful. This is the same thing. So if you're going to prove this, you got to prove that. So again, it's exciting time for us. So this is the value prop that I'm going to ask you guys to borrow until you can make one of your own. Okay. Hi, I'm here to bring you a complement to your existing regenerative treatments. On your menu, I see that you do facials, hair restoration, scar revisions, right? And some IV treatments. I have a technology that's going to help you. Our product was designed and developed to help you say yes to more clients, which I think is important to you, right? Leveraging the protein profile inherent in our product can serve as a booster to your existing regenerative treatments, right? A booster. Let me help you make them better, right? Let me help you make them more complete. Let me help you say yes to more patients.
Can you email a copy of this?
Yeah, you guys will have a look at it. Yep. Before we get into more details about the product and program, can you share with me how often do you turn away or say no to patients because of their age and health? You got to ask that question, right? Why are we asking that question? Because we have a lot of assumptions that we want to have validated, right? Our assumptions are they have them. We know they have them, but until they acknowledge them, they don't exist. So let them talk. When we get into these discussions, it's be 80% them, 20% you. Let them talk. They're going to talk. Do you have any images, pictures? Can you share? And they'll start dropping names. Write down the names, right? Yeah, these 2 or 3 people, whatever, right? And so take notes, learn from them. They're going to give you the knowledge to not only help close them, but to leverage and close others down the road. But let them talk about some of these patients that they have to say no to, right? How many are diabetic, right? Find out as much as you can. How many of these patients are risk adverse to blood draws and needles, right? Some of them are, right? They want to come in for microneedling treatment, but they're terrified to have the blood draw to get the protein. So this is something that's really good for them, really good because, again, for some reason, because you're not going that deep, people get microneedling treatments. They don't view it the same as you going through layers of skin and getting in the muscle or, other soft tissue. So if you could not have to do that and give them a product, again, there's more patients or more customers you can say yes to. Okay, targeted treatments, PRP-derived treatments. You're going to see treatments up there that are leveraging hyaluronic acid, right? Those are treatments. So you can mix the two together. You can mix our product with PRP, or it can replace PRP. You can mix it with hyaluronic acid. Anything adipose is fat, right? What they do a lot of times, and it's not as prevalent anymore because they're saying now that in order to process adipose, you have to send it to a certified lab like ours. Most labs don't like dealing with adipose, right? It's very messy. But adipose, they pull fat from your gut typically, or your thighs, and they re-inject it to other parts of your body. It's a great source of protein. Problem is, again, you used to be able to do it at a clinic. You're not supposed to do it at a clinic anymore. You're supposed to send it to a certified lab to process it for you, give it back. Some people still do it out of their office. You're not supposed to. In fact, a number of clinics throughout the Southeast were closed down because they were promoting adipose treatments as stem cell treatments. You want to look for anything microneedling, including hair restoration, right? These are good treatments. This is a good booster. Don't compete with their existing products and services, complement. Okay. And again, I do have some derm specific, I do have some photos that are very specific for aesthetics that I'll get over to you guys. But what I always like to do is say, hey, listen, our fluid was the catalyst to these recoveries. So the same fluid you're going to use on those regenerative treatments help this guy who is leading to a amputation recover. Because remember, when we would still make our fluid if you guys never sold an ounce of it, because it supports our flagship product, Dermastat, right? Dermastat is 100% autologous skin substitute that we make by getting a small scrape biopsy using proprietary techniques that if you got $1 billion, I'll give it to you right now. And from that, we can make a gel that's made up of their skin cells. So you apply it into these cavities, you apply it over this, and you secure it with a silicone membrane. Before that arrives, this patient's gone through a week or sometimes more pre-treatments with fluid. We're injecting in and around it because what we want is we want blood going into that area where it makes our product very hard to be effective. So we inject it in and around it. We want to pull down the ridiculous inflammation. We want a niche environment when the Cadillac shows up, right? Dermastat brings it home, right? But fluid sets the stage.
And obviously,
It's a setup.
Dermastat does have DNA, your DNA.
And it's your own DNA.
Are we gonna be selling them?
At some point, when you graduate this class, you get to move on to wound care. But again, all of these, this is Dermastat in Mohs. This is, if you got any contacts in dermatology, we need to talk. This is for any Mohs procedures that they can't suture up, right? Which typically is anything bigger than like a 5x5, depending upon the angle of the wound or the layout of the wound. Our product, this case again, they injected fluid in and around it, came back 2 days later, applied Dermastat. That's the
Platelet fluid, right?
What's that?
That's the platelet fluid.
That's the same one we're talking about.
Okay,
Same
just make
fluid.
sure.
Yeah, restore. But we use it as a booster to prep these patients for Dermastat. So it's used in combination with Dermastat. It's so effective. Now, this is the unique thing about this product in dermatology. You have full recovery in 21 days, right? Why is that? It's above the heart, right? Most of these patients are older and diabetic. Lower extremity wounds, they may take 6-8 weeks, even with Dermastat to recover. These are recovering so fast because they have very good blood flow going to the wound. And they recover 21 days. So it's cutting the recovery time for these Mohs in half, and it's minimizing the scarring, right? Which is a big deal. I mean, look at the size of the guy's wound. 21 days later. 21
So
days.
if it can be sutured, do they still want to use it?
They'll use fluid,
Oh, just.
or might throw a little membrane in there. Yeah.
And I'm just want to be conscious of your time.
Yeah.
I got a flight, so.
Yeah.
Just so you know, I mean, I'd love for you to go.
No, I mean, this is fluid is a supercharged product that in the past was really too expensive to use in the ways that we could use it. Cost has come down, right? And for us, we use it and we want you to use it to get your foot in the door. It can help you get into clinics to sell more CBDs. It can help you get into some clinics. Our podiatrist doctor, what was his name? That was your
Dr. Schneider.
Dr. Schneider, right? He bought every ounce of product, would have bought 3 or 4 times more than we had it. Yeah, he bought everything because the price is to a point where he told me, I've got a bunch of these people that are stalled. I'm going to use this.
Sure.
Even if I'm just going to charge him when it costs me out of my pocket. I'm going to use it. And then he found his first Dermastat case off of that side. He goes, I got a guy. He doesn't have insurance though. And I'm like, we'll do it. If you'll serve as a spokesperson for this group on that product, we're going to give it to you. Right? It's about a $12,000 cost. We're going to give it to you so that this group has a local doctor that will be your raving fan for the fluid and for Dermastat.
That's true.
Do you have a breakdown of the price, like the recommended cost?
Right?
Yeah, we'll.
Okay.
Sure.
So your distributor sets the price.
Got it.
Yep.
I'm new here.
Yep, that's okay. Now, if you run into a situation where they're interested in reimbursement, then circle back with us. That is established. That's very black and white. We have a price sheet for, because the pricing from a reimbursement standpoint is the same over the whole country. And they are eligible if they go down that route with
That's data
dermostat.
collection.
Yeah, there's a data collection program if they get paid.
Just to confirm, so you said if, because we have spoke with a couple of doctors, and they're interested, I mean, the cash pay is gonna be huge, right? But they're interested in the reimbursement, so you're saying if those doctors wanna zone in on this product for reimbursement through insurance,
Then what we'll do is a proof of concept with them. We'll have them do a couple, run it through insurance, make sure they're gonna get paid on it. Because there is a lot of pushback outside of podiatry, there is a lot of pushback. It was intended ours for pain and inflammation.
yeah,
It's getting pushed back because of just a lot of misinformation between the FDA and CMS.
Yeah.
And they're slowing everything down. We don't want them to be waiting for 10 reimbursements. That could be a cash drain on them. So if they want to do one or two, we'll
yeah,
subscribe.
this doctor's, he's invested in one of those, I think Michael knows the name, fluoroscopy, maybe.
Yeah,
Machine, couple $100,000, he's
Yeah.
injecting people in their knee, so.
I'm surprised he would be more interested because we got a couple guys like that in Arizona. It's all cash. Pay.
And he's interested, but
Well, let's not do it.
But in order to minimize confusion, as we move forward from where we are today, we're gonna focus in on the cash pay fluid.
Yes,
And we'll diversify into some of these others.
yeah,
But just kind of, if you could complete, Jaime, today, just by talking about the specific areas of where this cash pay WBRx Restore is most
successful.
successful.
So
Yeah.
sports
So we don't get-
medicine.
So don't get out there, yeah.
Huge market, sports medicine, young and old athletes, go to that. Because they're doing PRP day, night, and for half of them, it's not very effective.
Anything that's in conjunction with PRP.
Anything with PRP, right? Med spas, right? They would buy these products for us, but they're too expensive. In the past, they were paying $650 a CC in the past from us, then they had to mark it up, right? Now, it's a fraction of that. They can now afford it and offer it as a primary offering. So
There
med
are
spas.
our top people at 50% are gonna be able to buy this for $140.
$140. That's so you can double it, give it to them at $250
Yeah.
easily, double, and they're gonna, sell it for $500. Where before they were getting it for, they were buying it for $650. So you've cut their cost in half, and it's a more refined, better
No,
product.
this is gonna be available, guys, in your back office, under Wellness Biosciences back office, under a SKU set, WBRx Restore at the current discount. You can bring people there, you can actually sell it at a retail cost if you choose to, and then you can
Yeah, you can
generate the
build
revenue
programs. Yeah.
in the difference.
Give,
So-
start out, establish where you want to sell it at, right? And then offer some early payment discounts or offer some bulk purchase discounts, develop your own program.
Yeah.
And again, if you need my help, consultation or game planning, either myself or Mark Getty can help you game plan before you get out in the field. But go vet some accounts, wherever you're gonna call, and print out that value prop, have it with you right in front of you. I highlighted what I consider the benefit words, the keywords, but everything else, have at it. You're gonna fail initially. That's okay, because you learn from those, right? I got kicked out of a lot of offices when I first started selling these products because I wasn't positioning it correct. When I learned to complement instead of compete with, I got welcomed in. I'm like, so yeah, compliment, don't compete. They're gonna naturally move it out. They're gonna say, why am I still doing this? This is goofy, right? This is more consistent, faster. I see more patients. They can see about 10-15%, sometimes 25% more patients in a day with these treatments because they don't have to draw blood if they go that route.
One question, so if you're getting in, they like it, they're like, hey man, do you have something that shows me that this is cool, it's not growing a third year or anything, what do you, just to add credibility?
Yeah, there's-
Obviously, you wanna be talking to people that are already familiar with it, but
In Dropbox, there are some studies that show how effective these products are. So there's tons of brand agnostic studies out there on this product. And we actually have a clinic in New Mexico that treated a ton of different soft tissue injuries that did their own little study. So all that stuff is available to you guys. Hey, here it is. We've got doctors, and the other thing you want to remind them, we've had over 100,000 uses of this product in the last 3 years, 0 reported cases of adverse reaction. You know, and other manufacturers couldn't say that because they were using live cell products. There at times were reactions to some of those live cells. Ours, we killed a live cell, so there's nothing to react to, right? Unless they contaminate it when they're prepping it, our product is sterile, it's terminally sterilized, there's nothing in it that can cause an adverse reaction.
My lady said she's been using something like this made out of plants. Have you heard of that?
No,
I was like, plants?
I don't know how you get growth factors out of
I
that.
know.
They come-
So I was like, okay, so obviously I have to go back.
Yeah, you want to take this?
Well, she's got the.
You know what? I gave them all out yesterday. Can you get these guys all my
Yeah,
contact
I'll
info?
take it.
Do you have your smartphone? If you have your smartphone, you can actually just touch mine. I have one of those digital business cards.
Oh, I was wondering how you just touch it. So cool. TW can send it.
Well, you can
to
take a picture.
Andrew.
You just put your camera on.
We're gonna be like,
No, that's it should pick up that QR code.
no, I haven't.
No? Okay, do you see? Just have your phone.
I'll just-
Here, just-
Oh.
it should do it, whatever. Which one is ours? Okay, right here. So just save it to your contacts. Okay.
Wait, I have to.
Okay.
Mary's like. I
No, you
don't
should be
know.
able to pick it up that way. Your case might be.
I'm used to that.
Nobody-
So you guys got to be mindful of Heidi's time, so Heidi's pretty busy, so don't load him up with like. phone calls.
$100.
Well, I gotta run, guys. I gotta run the airport.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Good to meet you. Thank you very much.